Hello, in the second video of the Margaret's Memories project, we are making a bed, mattress, bedding, and pillows. Using the template I created, which you can find in the description box, I drew the bed parts onto corrugated cardboard. I prefer to use materials I have on hand, so I am using shipping boxes collected from online orders, but you can use any material of similar thickness that you have available. After I cut pieces out, for added strength, I glue the pieces back on the corrugated cardboard with hot glue. At this point, I make sure the corrugations in the two layers are opposite each other. I glue the pieces with hot glue initially because I will strengthen them later, and for now, hot glue provides enough hold for me. But you can use any type of glue you would like. I just used hot glue so it will be much faster. Once the general frame of the bed is formed, I decided to add triangular cardstock spots to the interior to prevent the frame from wobbling. These triangles will make it sturdier. I used a piece of cardstock that I glued together with tacky glue until it reached the desired thickness. I cut two squares and then diagonally cut them to form triangles. The triangles should be glued at the same height because they will support the mattress. So I mark 1 centimeter from the inside with a ruler to ensure I glue them at the same height. Being impatient at this stage, I used hot glue, but it was too thick and messy, so I suggest you to use tacky glue instead. As you can see, it is less wobbly. After I finished gluing, I went on just to fill in the gaps. While the compound dries, I will work on the bed's headboard embellishments. I thread the needle with string and knot the end, but since the string is too thin, the knot wasn't large enough to hold the beads. So I created a temporary barrier by applying a little bit of hot glue at the end of the string to prevent the beads from slipping off. After stringing the beads, I secured the glued end of the string inside the bed frame with a bit of hot glue. Following the guide I made with cardstock, I glued the beads with tacky glue. I continued this process to the other end of the bed frame and finished by adding a bit of hot glue and cutting off the excess. By this point, the compound has dried, so I moved on sanding. After a lengthy sanding process that requires patience, I prepare a mixture of 60% of glue and 40% of drywall joint compound. And I apply a thin layer all over the bed. The reason for this mixture is that cardboard alone is not strong enough or suitable for painting, but with this mixture it becomes as hard as stone. Therefore, I always do this step to ensure durability. After letting it dry, I lightly sand it again and then move on to painting. I cut cardstock to fit the inside dimensions of the bed, onto which I will glue pieces of an unused bath sponge. You can use cotton instead. Since my sponge is circular, I have to cut and glue it in sections. At this point, I end up burning my fingers a lot with hot glue, so be careful when using hot glue on porous materials. Don't follow my example. After gluing the sponge, I realized that the cardstock wasn't sturdy enough, so I added another layer with cardboard. Next, I found a white vest in my stash of clothes that are beyond repair and used it to cover the sponge. This was my first attempt at working with fabric, so I didn't do a very neat job, but since the back would be covered, I didn't worry too much. After covering the sponge with the fabric, I glued a piece of cardstock painted in ivory color to back to achieve a cleaner look. When I shortened a long dress, I had some leftover fabric that I thought would make a great duvet. Thinking Margaret would like this pattern, I draped the fabric over the bed to get an idea of what I wanted to do, and then I cut the fabric. Not confident in my sewing skills, so I used tacky glue to make the duet. I applied the glue to the two sides of the rectangular fabric, folded in half, and then used the hot glue end of the glue gun to press it down, since I didn't have a clover iron. This hot glue gun technique helped glue to dry faster. Now I am adding the cottons and using the open side I left, I am turning it inside out. To close the open side, I folded in a small seam allowance and applied glue to those inside edges, pressing it down with a hot glue gun again to seal the edges. After the duet is finished, I try using this hot glue gun method again as an iron, but it doesn't work after I stuffed it because it was too thick, so I moved on and used an iron. I used the same technique for the pillows with smaller rectangle pieces of fabric. In hindsight, using a different fabric for the pillows might have been better as the pattern makes them less noticeable. So I might make alternative pillows later in the project. For now, I left them as they are. Thinking the bed was finished, I realized I wasn't satisfied with the triangular supports under the bed. Even though no one would see the under the bed, I knew what was there, so I decided to add bed slats. I created a frame with coffee stirrers around the edges, then added slats with evenly spaced gaps to give the appearance of bed slats. I also realized the bed was flush with the floor, so I added legs. The template in the description box included cardboard legs, so if you use the template, you won't need to do this step. By the way, as you can see, I added more joint compound on the edges because I was unsatisfied, so I lightly sanded and painted it again, and then I move on to dry brushing. I practiced this technique on the unseen areas of the bed first. Once I was comfortable, I applied it to the entire bed. Lastly, I painted the bead embellishments in gold, and that completes the bed. This is the finished look. I haven't glued the pieces together yet as I haven't decided how I want the overall look of the model to be. I also want to achieve a cohesive look with the aging techniques, so I won't glue or age anything until the other furnitures are complete. So, see you on the next video. Goodbye.